Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Today on the podcast, we're talking about protecting the skin from harmful gases, and specifically a unique protective undergarment, a base layer for firefighters. This crucial piece of information comes from a whole body of research studies. We're going to be referencing quite a few of these in today's podcast. So firstly is the Minimizing Firefighters' Exposure to Toxic Fire Effluents. So this was from Professor Anna Steck in 2020, presented an independent report from the University of Central Lancashire, commissioned by the Fire Brigade Union. In summary, a growing body of evidence suggests that firefighters have an increased risk of developing cancer and other diseases compared to the general population. This increased risk may be linked to firefighters' occupational exposure to toxic fire effluents. As the best practice report, it aims to help protect firefighters' health by highlighting some of the key risks and common sources and suggesting preventable measures for minimizing exposure to contaminants and best practice for decontamination of fire and rescue service personnel, and also the equipment after exposure to toxic fire effluent. This piece of research provides background information, statistics, resources, and actions vital for improving firefighters' health and well-being, keeping them safe and preventing the contamination which otherwise will lead to serious health conditions resulting in either life-changing problems and or premature death. We're also going to be referencing a study about skin's exposure to PAH, which is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. There is a cancer risk among firefighters, a review, a meta-analysis of 32 studies, and a NIOSH study, and the National Institute for the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, which is NIOSH, in Cincinnati, USA. They investigated the link between cancer and firefighters. The study included 30,000 firefighters from San Francisco, Chicago, Philadelphia, and the results showed that firefighters have a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer and a significantly higher risk of developing 7 different types of cancer compared to the average population. So my guest on the podcast today is Thomas Dedering, and we're going to be speaking about the dangerous substances that firefighters' skin is exposed to and the possible partial solution that can be found with the help of undergarments. CPP, which is Thomas's company, started in January 2021, and when he started it was in the startup phase and since become a real company with a ready-made CE certified undergarment for firefighters that, in addition to CE, has undergone independent, careful, serious studies at a Swedish training centre with Swedish firefighters. The origin of the garments started when some Swedes, amongst others the chairman of the Swedish Firefighters Cancer Fund, went to Germany in 2014, where there was a company that manufactured breathable clothing for military that protects against warfare gases. And we're going to go into a whole bunch of information about how the technology works, how it protects against toxic gases whilst remaining breathable, and how this could be particularly useful, A, for firefighters globally, certainly for firefighters in the UK, and especially for fire behaviour, TAC vent, and breathing apparatus instructors. So it's a short and sharp one today, very informative. And I strongly encourage you to go into the links for this podcast and look at the studies, look at the data behind this, and have a look at CPP. It stands for Carbon Personal Protection. They are not yet distributing in the UK. However, you can still buy it and you can still import it, but only if you are actually the type of person, the type of service, the type of organisation, the type of brigade who is willing to put their money where their mouth is and actually take more tangible steps with data-driven evidence to protect the long-term health and well-being of their firefighters, and especially those who have a higher level of exposure and more regular interaction with these toxic gases, such as our training instructors and other individuals in our training departments up and down the UK. So it's a real privilege to have this conversation, really insightful, and I hope you take a lot away from it. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Thomas Dedering. I'll see you on the other side. So Tom, one of the things that really drew you to myself, or really drew me to you more to the point, was when I first saw a mutual friend, John McDonough, had one of your garments on at a recent event that I attended together, and I started connecting the dots in my head because I'd forgotten that your name and the brand had also cropped up during a conversation with Lars Axelsson quite some time ago. And I thought we would start today, I suppose, with common misconceptions, because there's a lot of conversation these days around cancer, around exposure, around decontamination, about particulates. What are some of the common misconceptions when people are thinking about firefighters' exposure to toxic fire effluents?
Well, I guess it is that you can't be contaminated through the skin. I mean... Say
more.
Yeah, well, you know, the skin is the biggest organ in the body. And according to us, it's like a sponge, more or less. But it's not a lot of people understands that.
So a lot of us are thinking about the things that we breathe in.
Exactly.
And the things that, so that's when people talk about respiratory protection, and we go into the BA sets and the gas masks and all of these half-face respirators and all that sort of stuff.
And your BA equipment is perfect, I think. There's nothing about lung cancers among firefighters. It's a lot of other cancers, but not lung cancer.
So when did you start thinking there was a gap in the market for this type of research? And we're going to refer to some of the stuff from Professor Anna Steck and the UCLAN documents commissioned by the FBU. It must have been quite astonishing to see that there was no one really offering a solution in the respect that you guys and girls have.
Yes, and this was actually before my time. It was a couple of... In Sweden, we have something called the Swedish Firefighters Cancer Foundation. I think it's something like 15 years old, this foundation. It's a small organization. They're more or less trying to inform the firefighters in Sweden about this important issue. But they also helps firefighters diagnosed with cancer to fight against the state. Because in Sweden it's not an occupational disease to get cancer as a firefighter. Same in the UK.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Do you think the declaration from the World Health Organization has taken us any further forward?
Absolutely. But then let me continue with so something like 10 years ago, the chairman of the Swedish Firefighters Cancer Foundation, together with 2 Swedish entrepreneurs, they started to discuss this issue. And they knew that there was a German company producing CBRN suits, breathable, against warfare, really toxic gases like sarin. So that's how the project started, actually. And then you mentioned the World Health Organizations through the agency IARC, the statement. It should help us a lot. But somehow it seems that people avoid to discuss the problem. Also in Sweden, I think we are ahead of you in the UK in this in terms of cancer and firefighters, but also here.
I think most definitely you guys and girls are ahead of us, and I would say probably the same for the American market again. I think there's a large element to do with it around the fear of acknowledging what has been done in the past. And I always say if we'd have known better, we'd have done better. But there's a lot of people retired, still serving, and even coming into their careers now who on a weekly basis, and for some, depending how busy they are, on a daily basis, a long time ago putting themselves unknowingly in harm's way. But again, because of the research, because of the debriefs, the work of World Health Organization, ANA, and a great number of others across many different nations, it's kind of becoming an awkwardly unavoidable truth now, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And if you have a certain age and maybe you have been in the service for, 25, 30 years, I don't think you want to hear about this issue, maybe.
No, because we don't really have an answer for it at the moment. And there's also the legislative aspect.
Yes.
So America is a very sort of political sphere in terms of litigation. And there's lots of finger pointing going on over there. There is also a lot of focus on solutions, but I think most of the noise that we see and hear comes from accusations of the past and firefighters getting cancer early in their retirement. And there's a lot of energy going into that, isn't there?
True. But I think also one reason could be that they have a very strong union in North America. They are very strong, the IAFF. I think they have been driving this discussions about legislations quite hard. They are absolutely much tougher than the Swedish trade unions.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the center of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA connected firefighter platform. Now back to the show. So some of the studies, some of the testing and reports that come behind a lot of the innovation that's gone into the CPP garments, and again, we're going to put a link underneath here for people to go and take a further look at it. We're talking a lot around, PAH here, so polyaromatic hydrocarbons.
Yes.
Could you expand a little bit for layman's and for myself, a knuckle-dragging firefighter, help us understand the purpose of these tests and what they showed?
Okay, start with the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons called PAH. Everything that burns creates this, because nothing burns 100%. And then it creates these PAHs, which is carcinogens. Everybody knows that. It's really dangerous, and there are something like 100 different types of PAHs, and they know that in Europe they claim 8 of them are really toxic, and in the States they claim, I think, 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything that burns creates these PAHs, and you can get it through from your mouth. You can breathe it, but you can also absorb it through the skin. And I think it's clear. I mean, firefighters are the most research occupation in the world in terms of
Really?
in terms of cancer. Yeah, there's a lot of different studies, a lot, and that's actually what IARC, they went through all the major studies to come to this conclusion. And after the IARC, instead of discussing solutions, what's happening? They have been creating another 200 different studies.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I suppose if you manipulate a test enough times, you can try and get a result that you're looking for. The beautiful thing about data is we can cut it in lots of creative ways, can't we?
Yes.
So looking at the testing of the clothing for the protection of firefighters against a lot of these substances, what was some of the overall? Because we assume, wrongly as we now know, that we put our fire kit on. What is it actually protecting us from, and what's getting through?
Well, if I would start with the obvious thing, a firefighter's clothing must be, I call it air permeable. If you want to be a more understandable word, you can say breathable. Obvious reasons, otherwise it should be too warm when you're doing smoke dive. I mean, you can't go into smoke dive with chemical suit. But that's really blocking, but it's too hot. And if it's breathing, then the gases, I know that some producers of the fabric, like some American fabric manufacturers, would claim that they protect against everything. But according to me, the smoky stench you have on your skin after a burn, for me, that's a proof that you are contaminated. It is.
Well, even inherently in the fact that it is a permeable barrier is, without getting into the science, and just want to say it with respect for people that perhaps won't understand this terminology, we're saying that something, imagine a fence, a fence at the edge of a playground. Yep. Air can pass through it either way. That effectively, you microscope down on pretty much any fabric. Some will be more tightly woven. Some may have a moisture barrier of some form within it. But they, as you've already alluded to, they are designed to be breathable.
Yes.
And that goes both ways.
Yes. But, we use activated carbon in our undergarment. And it's not a rocket science. Activated carbon has been in the world for many, many years. You have it in the kitchen fans, I think also in the UK.
Okay.
I think so. You have it in the car air intakes. It's a breathable material that capture gases.
How?
Activated carbon is a very porous. I think that the word is porous in the
porous. Yep.
Yes, material. So it has a huge area. For instance, our one ensemble of our undergarment has the same area as 60 football fields.
60. Wow.
Where this gas is.
So it's just like the analogy of your lungs when you stretch them out, they're the size of a tennis court or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah. So
because they're incredibly porous with the alveoli and all that jazz.
It's almost magic if you see what an activated carbon can do. I had a friend here today, and his wife's purse smelled not good after, I don't know, they've been to a strange party. It smelled smoke, almost, I think even cannabis smoke, I don't know, some smoke.
Okay.
And he took one of our garments, put it in her purse, in her bag, and after one day, the smell was gone. It's magic. And still, it's very easy. It's been forever, this material. But the problem has been that it has been very good and used a lot for static applications, like a kitchen fan or something. Mm-hmm. But for dynamic applications, for clothing, then it becomes a more difficult technology, actually.
Is that partially due to its expense? Because I imagine, like you say, if you were to stretch this stuff out, you say it goes over 60 football fields. So when we're putting it into a garment, we're layering and or compressing that, I imagine making it even more effective, but probably making it a difficult thing to manufacture in a clothing respect.
Exactly. Because normally you have this in fibers, activated carbon, but the fibers will be destroyed when you move, and they will be destroyed for instance, on the kneecaps for a firefighter crawling around on the ceiling, on the floor. Mm. And that's why this is actually, we are using a patented German technology. But at the end, the technology it's not rocket science. But how you put it in a garment and it will stay there and will not be destroyed when you crawl around, that's really the secret.
The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Op Zulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Opzulu bags are a game changer. So you know the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show. So within the report, if people go onto your website, there's a 23-page report of all of the tests. So there was 4 sets of testing done on these, and these were around the layers, just to go into, for example, one of the first tests, the layers from the outer side, fire smoke, to the inner side. So it was the fire suit, the undergarment square sample, a PUF sampler, aluminium foil, and steel hatch. So these are all of the layers that make up the outsides of our fire suits. Within that, there's a really great, useful penetration description also, and it goes through time. And I'm looking there, even within the first 10 minutes, there's over 6% of penetration of stuff. So it says here, results from the test textiles carried out in September 2020, the material samples were exposed to fire smoke for 3 different times, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and 40 minutes. The result is expressed in the amount of PAH on the inside, being the skin, in relation to the amount of fire smoke. So we've got, so even just after 10 minutes, so basically immediately as you're going inside, this stuff is getting through onto your skin.
Yes.
Wow. So it's not even like a time factor, really. I mean, it does get progressively worse, actually, as we go into the 40 minutes, we're up to 25%. So if we know that most wears on average are lasting between 15 and 30 minutes, if I had to factor an average out of that, you're looking at about 15, 16% of everything getting through.
Yeah, we have another study in Sweden, not our study, but another study in FOI in the north of Sweden. It's for the defense people. And they made a study of the current turnout gear for firefighters. And after 100 seconds, the smoke is penetrated and you have it on the skin. 100 seconds.
Wow. That's a bit concerning. So there's also a study that you did with smoke diving exercise. So smoke divers back in September 2020 as well. The smoke diving lasted for 25 minutes with new, previously used clothes. The result is expressed as a penetration, again, of the total PAH. And again, that's the amount that's getting through to the skin. And there's a variation shown here across the body. But even in the best case scenario on your thighs, where you've got many layers of garments, we're still looking at 3 or 4%, 12, 13% on the arms. So it seems, and there is quite some detailed stuff here. I'm not going to bore people reading through all of it, but they can go and find a lot of this information. So this kind of must have given the big push to put this product together. Talk to us a little bit around what the team actually came up with. So we've gone through some of the technology behind the CPP undergarment, the textile, the particulate filter, and you spoke about the activated carbon. This is a layer consisting of 100% activated carbon, which absorbs hazardous fire gases. The spheres of activated carbon are applied on the fabric made of 100% cotton. So this is a full suit. So it's a hood that goes over the top, and it's effectively like a set of overalls for people that either can't see what I mean, again, they can go and have a look at this. How do you see this being applied in the world of fire and rescue service as one example? Because we had this conversation around the deployability of this, but I love what you said around highest exposures and vulnerable groups as well.
Well, I can tell you, when we started the project, the CPP stands for Carbon Personal Protection. So we hoped, we thought, maybe that's a correct word, that it should be a personal equipment. But along the time, we have understood that maybe it should be more of a stationed that you have for every shift, you have this possibility to use it to reduce the costs, at least the initial costs, the direct costs. Secondly, I must say that the people most exposed are of course the fire instructors all over the world. So they should be the first to use this because they are heavily exposed. So through our common friend Lars Axelsson in Sweden, I've been in contact with some CFBT persons around the world. We met some of them, and so they are really the number one users, I must say.
So this thing can be bought as independent components as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. It consists today of, as you said, hood, jacket, and trousers. Yes, and I can tell you that from when we started the project, we used the CBRN suits, and this was one piece because that's what they have in the military. But the firefighters in Sweden who helped us with all the testing, they wanted to have it as a three-piece suit. So that's why we have a three, because I heard from quite many firefighters that they would like to have it as a one-piece instead. But, right now we have only it's a three-piece.
I think it works better as a three-piece personally.
Good.
Because needing a wee and all that sort of stuff, and it allows you to take components off individually. I think one of the things I found interesting with John's suit, and I think his suit is an all-in-one, isn't it?
Three-piece.
Oh, is it not? I apologise. His is a three-piece suit, is it? Oh yeah, because I saw him took his hood off. We were using some D-wipe and some hero wipes when we were there, because everybody came out and we were all doing some decon just before we went off and did some debrief of the incident ground. And the biggest thing that surprised me about him was the lack of, I know it's something we've already said, but the lack of smell and also the lack of anything really on his skin. Like, he also had a particulate protecting flash hood, which a lot of services still don't have. We're just wearing a 10-pound cloth on our head, unfortunately. And you could see the variation because there was around 20 or so different services present at this particular event, all wearing different variations of fire kit and different variations of protection underneath it. And they all went in for about 15-20 minutes each. This was an attack box scenario, quite heavy fire loading, temperatures up around 700-800 degrees, and we were demonstrating neutral planes and using smoke curtains and stuff like this. So quite heavy, thick black smoke. And I say, as we came out and went round the circle, well, we was just sitting having a debrief and everyone's just naturally wiping off. John had damn near nothing on him. And he was facilitating the session in there. So he was in there as the coach, if you will. So he stayed in there for about 40 minutes because I know he nearly wore his set out and he was going to swap out for another cylinder, but we just rotated. And we all just went in for sort of 10-minute stints each. So John was sat there right at the front, demonstrating gas cooling techniques and all this sort of stuff. And he seemed to have the least on him. And he didn't smell either. And it was really one of those just really surreal moments where your mind doesn't compute it because you expect it, because that's the way you've been conditioned. You expect a smell of smoke, you expect to go and have to use the special soap and all this sort of stuff. What sort of feedback have you had from individuals that are utilising this? Ever heard the quote that true leaders are readers? Well, we believe this is true. Listeners often ask where we go to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the sector globally. So there are a few key publications that I encourage you to go check out. Now, if you're looking for insights on disaster management, fire protection, and firefighting, for us, we go to Asia Pacific Fire Magazine. And when you're looking for the latest on the Middle East fire protection industry and fire services, it's Gulf Fire Magazine. And our quarterly check-in is with International Firefighter Magazine, reporting to municipal, industrial, and fire training professionals. Now, next up, I'm widely accepted to be the global voice for passive and active fire protection. This is a good one. It's International Fire Protection Magazine. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant to our predominantly UK audience, I'd strongly suggest subscribing to UK Fire Magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services. We're really excited to announce that after a long-standing relationship and mutual respect, we've now partnered with MDM Publishing, who bring you all of these essential publications. Because in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer said that, and I believe he was right. So keep growing, keep learning, and keep yourself in the know and at the cutting edge of what's happening globally by dropping into the notes. And as a gift from the podcast, you can actually subscribe to any of these publications for free using the link in our notes. Now back to the show.
May I read some quotes?
Please do.
Perfect. These are from respected, I think I can say respected and independent CFBT instructors. So,
okay.
I mean, they are not so easy to convince. Some quotes.
It's the best audience to use it, though, isn't it?
I think so. Some quotes are from public sources and some from emails. And for the emails, I have obviously, of course, asked them for permission to read them for you, to use them, and then it's okay. Do you know an Australian guy called Shan Raffel?
Shan Raffel has been on the podcast.
Oh, you see. Almost a
yes.
Almost a legend within CFBT community.
Shan is a legend.
Yeah. He has a video on Facebook with a product review of our product. And he says, definitely recommended. It's extremely comfortable and gives a much higher level of protection. That's his quote. Hans Nieling, do you know him? CFBT instructor from Netherlands. Mm-hmm. He's written on Facebook, this awesome, perfect working undergarment. Using it since a couple of months and I'm in. Don't want anything else anymore. Absolute stunning experience when wearing this garment. I'm testing it and used it about 10 times and it works super. We have this guy from CFBT Belgium, Steve de Blauwe. You know him?
No, I don't know that one.
It's a younger guy from CFBT Belgium. He says, the difference to normal undergarment from wool is really incredible. After 40 minutes, I had no smell on my skin, not even on the strap of my watch. And finally, the Australian guy, John McDonough, who sometimes is a lead instructor of CFBT Belgium. He says, absolutely no smoke smell in the garments I wore underneath or in my hair. This was even after 3 burns. This is telling me something. And finally, I have continued to use the undergarments and had to be honest, I would feel naked without them. For me, I mean, if you don't have this smoky stench, then you are not contaminated. If you have smoky stench, you are contaminated. For me, that's quite easy. And you talk about the D-wipe. I think it's a good product, absolutely. But how much have already entered into your body?
Yes.
Before you D-wipe. That's, yeah.
That's dealing with it after the fact, isn't it? Yeah. It's a bit, it is effectively, our skin is a porous, organ. So as soon as it hits that exposure, and obviously we get warm and we become more porous, we've all been in a sauna, we understand the dynamics of how it works, your body is just absolutely sucking that stuff in. Yes. So D-Wipe's a fantastic product, but it's after the fact. It's like, oh, something bad's already happened, let's try and lessen the effect of any further damage, which can still happen because as your body cools down, it's continuing to absorb more and more and more and continue to suck it in, and your PPE is continuing to gas off again because it's porous and it's hot. So you can continue that exposure and you can worsen the effect of it. When you're looking at getting this into the hands of people, I know we spoke a little bit before around It is every single company has its limited resources and limited reach and all this sort of stuff, but people are able to purchase this. I know now we're out of the EU, it becomes very difficult for UK services, but I know of various quite large services. You're looking at your West Mids, your Greater Manchester, your London Fire Brigade, Tyne and Wear, various others, very, very large services, Lancashire where we were. how would they go about purchasing these sorts of things? You know, is it an element? It's like anything. A lot of the money goes into R&D, doesn't it? And then once you hit a tipping point, the product becomes cheaper. But they are quite expensive as an individual purchase for the person. That's why I'm trying to, I suppose, ask you to sell it to our services and our leadership teams.
Yep. Well, to start with, we are a small company, limited resources, obviously. So we started in Scandinavia, and then we extended it to Northern Europe, within European Union. Next step in our plan is Southern Europe, together with the UK. And I'm sorry that you are together with the Southern Europe, but that's due to it's a nightmare to export to countries outside European Union.
Is it a nightmare?
No, it's not a nightmare. But let me put it like this: it's very easy to export to countries within the European Union.
Okay.
I mean, it's like no difference for me to send from Stockholm to Gothenburg or from Stockholm to Milano. I mean, it's the same. No documents.
Just help us understand a little bit. Sorry, what is the additional costs that go on there for
no,
people
it's not additional
no
costs, but it's additional documents. It's a much more administration with documents that you have to sign before sending to UK. So. Saying that,
if there was someone that wanted to stock it in the UK,
if there
was a company that wanted to buy 100 of these,
of course. Saying that, I mean, we don't have any distributor in UK, so if any listener if you have any listener interested, they can contact me.
I think that's something that I certainly know of a number of companies that would be interested in doing that.
They can contact me, absolutely.
Okay. My head's just started racing a little bit, actually, then.
I've been in contact with Hunter Apparel. But
yes, Simon Hunter was one of my thoughts, actually. You connected with
nothing
Simon.
Decided. They, I don't know, maybe it was the price that they felt was a little bit, nothing decided at all. I mean, so if anyone is interested, please contact me. And I can also say that I didn't know that Hunter was involved in the liquid CO2 washing, because I think that's a brilliant product for cleaning the turnout gears 1 or twice a year. I think you need it, honestly, because the turnout gear after a normal washing looks nice, but it isn't. It's very dirty.
Yeah, I think the numbers, and I'll get them wrong, I've got the document somewhere, it's removing like 19% of the contaminant. Also, it's not taking a lot out, because again, down to the very design of this highly complex garment, there's a huge moisture barrier inside it.
Exactly.
So you can wash it as hot as you like, as quick as you like, as many times as you like. Yeah. As it's exactly what you're saying. The thing that's contaminating it is a small particulate part of a gas. Yeah. And I know my terminology is completely wrong there, because when it becomes a gas, it's no longer really defined necessarily as a particulate. But that stuff is so small that unless you're using a material like yours, unless the PPE industry turns around and suddenly wants to, I suppose that would be the golden nugget, wouldn't it? If you could get your stuff added as a layer within FireKit, that's perhaps the utopia.
Yes, we have discussed this with several turnout gear manufacturers, and maybe that will be the future solution, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I
suppose it's the margins of scaling all of that all the way up, because this is it's an expensive thing to start with to add as an additional layer.
Yeah, but I mean, if we want to play together with some turnout gear manufacturer, we will actually want to together design the future turnout gear.
Yeah.
Not only add our product as an inner layer, because we want to really develop the future PP in that case.
Because you've got the patent on this product as well, and this is a similar analogy to other companies that I've spoken to. The problem is when you begin a relationship and add your product to an existing product, if they don't adhere it or attach it or seam it and seal it in the correct manner to the garment, and I've had this with a few conversations with people, whether that's higher visibility protection, or if they don't do it properly, it actually doesn't work.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And then you can get a very bad reputation just because someone has applied the thing wrong. It's not that the thing doesn't work, but it's the application of it can completely ruin it. And then you'll forever be stamped as something that's a chocolate fire guard, doesn't actually do anything.
And back also to what you said about hunters, we absolutely think that we are just a complement. We are complement to the turnout gear. We are no competition to turnout gear. We are complement. We are complement to the different washing systems that are out there. We don't compete with anything actually. We don't compete with the normal undergarment because the price is, much lower than what we have. And
well, they're effectively, with the greatest of respect, just jumpers and trousers. They're thick cotton and they're thick cotton of different variations. I'm actually wearing one now. And they're effectively issued for further thermal protection. They're just trying to add another layer. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? To dissipate that heat and allow the person to stay in longer without getting burnt. They were never actually sold for any form of particulate protection or decontamination. There's nothing inherently scientific really about the way these things are designed.
No, true. Here in Scandinavia, it's quite popular to use merino wool as quite popular as an undergarment today.
If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drillbook, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to Jessup, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters, so you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show. Talk to me about the washing process of these garments, because they last 5 years. So they must be obviously heavily durable, but we've just spoken a lot about washing fire kit. Like, how do you wash these things? Is there a set process? Is that an expensive thing?
No, you wash it just a normal undergarment, but obviously you should not wash it together with the dirty turnout gear.
Yes.
I don't think you would wash it together today, but you should avoid that. But you can wash it, no problem.
Is there any risk around washing it at a temperature and whatever's being captured releasing itself back into any of the garments that it's being washed with?
No, for good and for bad. Activated carbon and gases works like it's saturated. So the substances is captured by the activated carbon and it stay there. You can't wash it away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does that have a capacity as well? So is that what the 5 years is based upon?
Exactly.
Is that based on an assumed number of wears during that time and the carbon?
Yes and no. Yes, okay. We have, due to resources, both time and finance, we have only tested it up to 10 hours. 24 smoke dives, 25 minutes each, with intermediate washing. That's 10 hours. So we actually don't know the capacity of the 10 hours. We know it's much better than what you have today, and we think it's much better also after 50 hours. But we haven't tested it, so we can only prove 10 hours. And 10 hours for a Swedish firefighter. 10 hours is for an average Swedish firefighter. 10 hours in smoke, it's 5 years.
Okay. What other elements do you think we've skipped over? Because I want to be respectful of your time, but I almost feel a bit bewildered by our conversation. And the first time I had it, I was a bit like, gee, it's the problem is when you realize it, you all of a sudden feel quite naked at the fact that you're probably going to be, I wore twice last week in carbonaceous fires. Didn't have anything like this. I was protected by my new PGI flash hood, but the rest of my body just continues to pay the price.
No, not really. I mean, we had discussed the cost. I don't think I mentioned the price, but I think, for an average Swedish firefighter and probably average UK firefighter, this is something like £15 a month.
£15 a month over that 5-year
period.
Okay.
And that
is there a payment structure available to people such as that? I imagine not, because cash flow is a very difficult one.
Yeah, it's not. But maybe that should be the solution. Maybe future solution, but not now.
Well, that's it. If you can get someone to stock it in the UK that's got a big enough cash flow that can offer this sort of product, I think it's an absolute game changer, mate. I think it's probably the only solution I've actually seen that can withstand the criticism. And again, that criticism coming from recognized fire behavior experts globally. So with the greatest of respect, not just people who have done their BA and worn in fires for the last 10 or 15 years. These are from people who actually understand the science, actually understand the data. Again, we're referred to Professor Anna Steck, actual toxicologists.
I met her in Norway a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yes, she is brilliant, really.
She's on my hit list. But I think things like this close out the solution for truly effective particulate protection for firefighters. So we're going to stick in the links below, cppgarments.com. Again, if you go to that website, folks, you will see all the information against the protective garment itself. You can look at the technology and how the studies were done. There's 4 studies available on there, and these are also supported by the UCAN and the FBU. So these are the minimizing firefighters' exposure to toxic fire effluents. It's also an interim best practice report. Again, that was from Professor Anna Steck in 2020 as a UCAN report. All of that information is available there. To all of our partners and to all of our large distributors, and also to Simon Hunter, I strongly would encourage you to try and see the long-term benefit of this. And I know it would be a large gamble, but once it's in the country, and if it could be offered again, starting with that test sample of people such as myself, fire behavior instructors, tack vent instructors, potentially, not necessarily our BAIs, people that are using synthetic smoke, and those types of rigs, not a requirement for all of them, but certainly for our larger places like the Fire Service College, West Mids, Lancashire, Greater Manchester, places where they are doing dirty burns, live fire training on a daily basis. I think this would be a massive testimony to people putting their money where their mouth is and actually making a true commitment to the long-term health and wellness of firefighters in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. So thanks so much for your time today, Tom. I really do appreciate it. And I sincerely hope to be able to have a future conversation about the success of the distribution with this, not just in the UK, but globally, because I know you're having some success already, and we are just a little bit further down the line than you.
Good. Thank you.
The Firefighters Podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.